If you've ever been laughed at by your own parents, you know it's not the playful, sitcom kind. It's that elastic little laugh that snaps back and stings, the one that says, "Ah, look who thinks he has boundaries." That's the laugh I got when I said, "I'm done paying your debts." It was a Tuesday, which in my family is basically financial triage night. Mom texted, "Swing by. Important. Translation, bring your wallet." I came straight from my night shift, still smelling like forklift exhaust and despair-flavored cardboard, and walked into a kitchen table laid out like a crime scene, overdue notices, pink slips, and a calculator older than the moon. "Landon," Mom began, tapping the fattest envelope. "The electric is behind, the water's due, and your father's." "No," I said. Dad blinked like I'd spoken in dolphin. "No? No. I'm done. No more late fees, no more oops we forgot the mortgage, no more just this once that happens every month." Silence. Then Mom laughed, hand wave, head tilt, the whole Broadway routine. "Don't be dramatic. You'll help. That's what family does." Dad added his favorite line, "You need us as much as we need you." Wild, hearing that from two people who never once co-signed a thing, never spotted me 20 for gas without stapling a guilt sermon to it. They didn't know the stats I carry like a secret: years of double shifts, rebuilding dead lawnmowers in my garage for an extra 100, selling half my closet online, skipping groceries so their overdraft wouldn't snowball. They didn't know about my other account, the one I renamed from savings to emergency that isn't theirs. I treated it like a plant, watered, hidden, and no one else gets to touch it. Being the responsible one wasn't a compliment in our house. It was a chore chart you never age out of. I was the designated adult by 14. At 16 I paid the Wi-Fi so my dad could stream golfers he calls by first name. At 19 I canceled a road trip because Mom needed bridge money until payday, which turned out to be a suspension bridge stretching 6 weeks. At 24 I fronted 3 mortgage payments because the bank's being weird. As if due dates were a personality flaw. So yeah, when I said no, I meant it. Not loud, just final. Dad smirked. "We'll see." That smirk landed like a dare. But here's the thing, I wasn't bluffing. Somewhere between debt notice number 47 and eating ramen dry in my car on a 15-minute break, I learned 2 truths. 1. People don't believe you've changed until you stop doing the thing. 2. Stopping the thing feels like jumping off a cliff the first time, and like taking off a backpack full of bowling balls the second. I looked around our kitchen, the magnet calendar with birthdays I'm supposed to fund, the junk drawer with 6 expired checkbooks, the plant I keep alive because no one else remembers to. I felt that old, familiar cocktail of love and exhaustion slosh in my chest, and beneath it, something steadier. Relief. I wasn't hating them. I was choosing me. Mom tried once more, softer. "Sweetheart, your father's blood pressure. He can drink water and open his mail," I said, and even I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "I love you. I'm not your bank." We stared at each other across a table of debts I didn't make. Dad's jaw worked. Mom's laugh died. For the first time in years, the room belonged to the person paying for nothing. I left before the speeches started. Drove home with the windows down, heart banging like a loose dryer. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and fell asleep to an unfamiliar sound, silence that didn't feel like punishment. They didn't text that night. The next day I got a meme from my sister of a cat holding a knife, classic family diplomacy, but otherwise quiet. Part of me hoped they'd surprise me, get a budget app, stop treating due dates like urban legends. Another part knew better. Exactly 1 month later to the day, my phone lit up, urgent. "Call us. House in trouble. Need $6,000 today." I didn't call back. I opened my files. And that's when this story really started writing itself. The first week after my phone discovered a new species of silence. Not the cold, cut you off kind, more like the house after a dropped plate, everyone listening to see who moves first. I moved first, but not toward them. I did 3 boring, adult things I'd put off for years: froze my credit like leftover soup, removed myself as an authorized user from Dad's points card. Points equals the right to get yelled at about balances I didn't spend, and killed the last ghost autopay with my name on it, an ancient, temporary, utilities thing I forgot permanently. It wasn't fireworks. It was just like taking off a wet sweatshirt I didn't realize was weighing me down. Day 5, Mom texted a recipe video like nothing happened. Sheet pan gnocchi, so easy. Day 8, my sister sent a reel of a dog on a scooter. Day 10, Dad forwarded an article titled, "Kids these days are soft," which he probably meant for his buddies named Ron. I did not engage. I watered my plant, took my cheap running shoes for an expensive-feeling run, and opened a folder I hadn't touched in months. House, parents. Yes, I had a folder. Years of bailing teaches you to build a paper trail. PDFs of mortgage statements they emailed me. By accident. Property tax receipts, mine, because the county nearly auctioned the house in 2021 while Dad was busy yelling at a cloud. Bank letters with words like delinquent, grace period, and my favorite, goodwill adjustment, corporate for. This is your last candy before the dentist. I didn't plan anything dramatic. I just stared at due dates like constellations. The rhythm never changed: deny, delay, dramatize, demand. My therapist calls it a cycle. I call it Tuesday. Week 2, the quiet developed hairline cracks. Mom. Sue the city put a yellow paper on the door. Prob mistake. Can you swing by? I resisted the itch to fix and sent a link to a free credit counselor. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji so passive it deserved its own seat at Thanksgiving. 2 days later, Mr. Alvarez, the neighbor who waters plants at reconnaissance level, left me a voicemail. Mijo, someone with a clipboard came by. Paper on their door again. Your father said it's fine. His fine face looked not fine. I drove by that night and stayed in the car. The yellow paper wasn't a bomb, not yet, just a reminder of past due utility with a number that would be funny if it weren't attached to running water. The porch light was out. I'd replaced that bulb twice last year. My hands twitched. I went home, sat on the floor, typed a message, deleted it, typed another, deleted that. Boundaries aren't doors, they're daily decisions. By day 14, the quiet felt like a truce everyone was losing. I ate pasta over the sink, added 2 receipts to the folder, and told myself, out loud, "You're not the rope in their tug-of-war anymore." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Then I set my phone face down and slept through the night for the first time in weeks. Week 3, Dad broke the quiet with a classic opener. Be reasonable. People only say that right before asking you to be unreasonable. 10 minutes later, my sister called. Okay. They're freaking out, she whispered. The bank called. Not foreclosure, like the spice before foreclosure. What's the spicy word? Default? Yeah. That. Very spicy. Did they get a reinstatement letter? Sounds like something at a spa. Tell them to forward any mail. I'm not sending money. If we're talking facts. She sighed. Mom's, and if we don't open it, it isn't real mode. Tell her envelopes are not wild animals. Day 24, an email slid in from Norripley at Trustee Services with a subject line that tasted like metal, notice of default recorded. There it was, plain as a stop sign. Not a house fire, smoke in the walls. The arrears looked suspiciously like 6,000 and change. I didn't call them. I called Ari. Ari works at a title company where the air smells like toner and quiet competence. We met when I was paying their delinquent property taxes and needed to make sure the county didn't have us on a frequent flyers list. She's the kind of person who can make a spreadsheet feel like a hug. I forwarded the notice. Can you pull chain of title and open a file? I think the servicer changed and they're in pre-foreclosure. You think or you know? Both. Also betting there's a tiny HOA lien. They hate mowing. She whistled. Love a layered mess. An hour later, a tidy PDF parade, current lender, yep, it switched last spring, deed of trust details, mini HOA slap, property taxes current, you're welcome, a reinstatement path that looks simple on paper and very not simple in my parents' emotional economy. You could reinstate, Ari said carefully. 6-ish grand plus fees buys 60 to 90 days. 60 to 90 days until the same conversation. I rubbed my forehead. What if they don't reinstate? Timeline depends on state and trustee. Could be months. Faster if they ignore notices. They will absolutely ignore notices. Ari paused. You okay? I'm weirdly calm. I hate that the house is on the line. I also hate being the rope. Then don't be the rope, she said. Be the person reading the rulebook. Week 4. The siren. Mom called at 7:12 a.m., the time slot traditionally reserved for hospitals and panic. I let it ring, breathed twice, answered. Her voice lived in the cry-laugh place. We need 6,000 today. Today. They're going to accelerate, that was the word. Your father is white as cottage cheese. Dad in the background. Tell him this is why families exist. I waited 5 beats, let the old circuitry spark and die. Forward me the letter, I said. Top to bottom. Every page. Landon, honey, there isn't time. It's just 6. You have that. In your little rainy day. I pictured that other account, renamed twice, grown leaf by patient leaf. The storm it was built for had finally arrived, and it wasn't theirs. Send the letter. I repeated. Numbers, not feelings. 10 minutes later, my phone lit with skewed photos taken at funhouse angles. I rotated like a DJ. There it was, the exact reinstatement amount down to pennies, red stamp. If not cured by this date, trustee may proceed. Thank you. I texted. I'm not transferring money to you. If anything happens, it goes through the trustee. 3 dots. Then, why are you punishing us? God, that line. I used to swallow it whole. Now I could label it and set it down. I'm not punishing you, I wrote. I'm refusing the pattern. Dad called, skipping hello? You will give us $6,000 today. You owe us your life. No, I said, and the words slid into the right lock. I owe you honesty. If I help, it will end the cycle, not feed it. Speak English. He snapped. I am, I said. You just don't like the translation. I hung up, shaking, but the new muscle kind. I reopened Ari's email. Opened a blank note. Wrote one line I never thought I'd write. There's another way. Back to Ari. Hypothetical. Hit me. If someone wanted to stop the bleeding by changing who holds the wound, what would that look like? She thought. Options: cure the default directly with the trustee and build guardrails. Buy a small lien to gain leverage. Or read the rulebook. I finished. Exactly. And don't try to be a hero in a day. I won't, I said, meaning it. One right thing at a time. At noon, Mom. Please. They'll pause if we show intent. Send anything. $500? 1203, Dad. You're cruel. 1205, my sister. I hate group chats. Accidental truth. 1220, I emailed the trustee for exact figures and wiring instructions. No middlemen, no. We'll pay it tomorrow. Black hole. 1242, they replied. Real numbers, real dates, real consequences. Siren quieter in black ink. I didn't wire a cent that day. I made a list. Ate a sandwich. Took a walk because my nervous system runs on 1990s hardware and needs reboots. Then I set 2 reminders, one on the cure date, one 2 weeks earlier, labeled. Pick a door that doesn't lead back to the same room. Dad texted at dusk. Last chance. He meant, last chance for me to play my old role. I'm not your last chance, I typed. I'm your last pattern. Phone face down. Ari's PDF is up. For the first time in my life, I started reading the rules to win. Not just to keep the game from ending. I didn't sleep after the last chance text. Not because I was scared, because my brain was doing spreadsheets at 2 a.m. I drafted the only offer I could live with. I cured the default directly with the trustee. They quitclaim title to me, subject to the existing mortgage. They get a 1-year lease at $0, with rules: open your mail, mow the lawn, no new debt on the house, and no more handyman miracles with duct tape and prayer. I sent it to Ari at 7:06 a.m. She called before coffee. This protects you, she said, scanning. Also protects them. No sheriff's sale, no back alley lenders. Can we even record a quick claim mid-default? Yes. Lender stays first position. Title shows you. For once, the paperwork matches reality. Be our adult in the room? Ari gave me the benevolent sigh. I'll open escrow and book a mobile notary. But Landon? Don't walk this back when their voices get loud. My voice is getting louder, I said, surprised to hear it out loud. Subject line to my parents, a path forward, with boundaries. PDF attached. Dad called 12 minutes later, laughing like a man watching a toddler push a shopping cart. Elise? In my house? Not your house, I said. The bank's. And the bank wants it back. Mom slid in fast. Skip the drama. Just send the 6. If I send the 6, we do this again in October. I said. If we sign, I can stabilize it. You might actually sleep. Silence. My therapist calls it tolerating the gap. I call it not auditioning to be the hero. Finally, Mom whispered, Your father says absolutely not. Then my answer is absolutely no. I said. I don't fund fires. We entered the stalemate era. Mom texted photos of red-stamped envelopes as if new angles would change the math. Dad posted a Facebook screed about ungrateful children. My sister texted, Mom tried to Venmo me $6,000 titled groceries. I blocked them on Venmo and felt like a cybersecurity analyst with a grudge. That night I reread Ari's draft. It was clean, almost kind. My wire goes to the trustee. Title transfers to me. They get a written lease with house rules simple enough to survive our family. I added one more, call a professional before touching the water heater. We have history. Day 3, the phone rang. Mom's voice was small, like it had to pass through a keyhole. We'll sign, she said. Your father is resting. Resting is our family word for sulking with a side of sports radio. Ari moved like weather. She opened escrow, sent wire instructions, added a bulleted sign here /initial there /don't doodle cover sheet, and scheduled the mobile notary for tomorrow at 2 p.m. She CC'd the recorder clerk she calls. Fast fingers, no attitude. That evening I drove by the house. The porch light was on, the mail was not. Same as always, hope glowing, problems unopened. I sat in the car and let the new shape of things settle. This wasn't rescuing, it was restructuring. If they didn't sign, we were done. If they did, we'd have rules. Either way, I wasn't paying with my peace anymore. At 8:41 p.m., Dad texted, We aren't tenants. I typed, deleted, typed again, and finally sent, Your parents, not lenders. That's why we need paper. No reply. Good. Let the gap breathe. The next morning Mom asked if she should dress nice for the notary. I said, dress like someone who reads their mail. Too sharp, maybe, but it landed. When I pulled up at 2, the kitchen table was wiped, a pen sat on a folded napkin, and the stack of unopened envelopes had finally been slit open. Progress in our dialect. The notary's black bag hit the chair like a gavel. We were really doing this. The mobile notary had the calm of someone who's seen peak family weird at kitchen tables. Mom wore sunglasses indoors, our clan's version of litigation privilege. Dad hovered until the word lease appeared, then went outside to deliver a driveway monologue about tyranny to the birdbath. Signature here, sir, the notary said when he returned. It's a sham, Dad announced. Initial here too, sir. He initialed with the flourish of a man autographing a fan's cast. By 2:40 p.m., the ink was dry. Ari filed the quitclaim deed and the lease, then pinged me, recording in queue. I wired the exact arrears directly to the trustee, no family middlemen. At 4:22, reinstatement posted. At 4:37, Ari's email with 3 attachments and 1 word, recorded, my name printed where the county keeps its truth. I didn't gloat. I saved the deed in a folder called Sanity, then took myself for tacos I didn't have to justify to a budget that wasn't mine. When Dad called at 8:11, I let it ring twice. "So, you finally helped," he said. "I didn't help," I said. "I changed the structure. Semantics. Foundations." We let that sit. It felt like putting a bookshelf against the wall that used to tilt. The next week was quiet in that fragile way fresh snow is quiet. Dad stomped like floorboards had betrayed him. Mom watered her fake fiddle leaf with the intensity of a triage nurse. My sister sent a raccoon meme wearing a tiny landlord hat. "Is this you now?" I laughed, and put water heater on a watch list. Day 28 arrived right on panic o'clock. Mom called, breathless. "It's today. If we don't pay $6,000 today, they'll take the house. Please, check your email," I said. 5 minutes ago. Fumbling. Paper app sounds. A tiny squeak. My mother's sound for reality just blinked first. "I see a PDF. What is this?" "The deed," I said, soft but steady. "Read who owns it now." Silence, then a small, honest, "Oh." "The second attachment is the trustee's paid receipt. No sale today. No sale if we follow the rules." Dad took the phone. "What did you do?" "Something gradual," I said. "And legal. Welcome to the lease era. I'll swing by tomorrow with printed copies. House rules are page 2. Bring a pen that writes." I hung up and let my heart beat slow until it stopped sounding like a woodpecker. For the first time, this ground felt level, not because I won, but because the rules weren't implied anymore, they were written. Ari texted, "Proud of you. Boundaries are maintenance. Call me before they improve." The water heater. I sent her a screenshot of the county stamp. "This house finally has an adult." I didn't mean me alone. I meant the version of me who doesn't pay with his piece. That night I sat in my car across from the porch where they once laughed when I said, "I'm never paying your debts again." Same light. New map. I thought about every time I tried to be the blanket over their fires, then watched the sparks crawl back under the door. Not this time. The extinguisher has a label. So does the door. Inside, the printer word. Outside, the crickets tuned up. Between them, a deed with my name spelled right, and a lease with rules simple enough to save a family that keeps mistaking urgency for truth. Tomorrow I'd tape a copy of the "No DIY plumbing" clause to the water heater. Call it superstition. I call it faith with a staple. The first month under the lease felt like living on a freshly mopped floor. Same house, new squeak. I taped house rules to the fridge. 1. Open mail the day it arrives. 2. Text a photo of any leak before touching a wrench. 3. No new debts tied to the address. 4. Thermostat wars are settled by the bill. Mom read them like scripture. Dad tried to slide the paper aside. I slid it back. I hired a real plumber to replace the water heater hoses Dad once reinforced with zip ties and faith. He hovered behind the pro. "I've been doing this since before you were born," he told him. The plumber pointed at scorched insulation. "And yet, here we are." Ari checked in with lawyerly cheer. "Compliance?" she asked. I defined mine: bills paid on time, no secret loans, no accidental refinance attempts. She filed a soft alert on the title anyway. Week 2, Mrs. Patel waved me over with a rake. "Your dad says you're babysitting the deed." "Lifeguard," I said. She sent samosas. For the stress. I ate 3 in the car and called that dinner and self-care. At night, the house stopped sounding like a threat and started sounding like my childhood, but kinder. Same porch light, different story. I'd stand under it and remember the kid version of me trying to fix things with straight A's and silence. Now I went inside to check the mailbox was empty and the sink wasn't full of tools. Dad kept testing doorknobs on the new boundaries. "What if I mow at 9 p.m.? The air is better." "It's a HOA violation and a cry for help," I said. He grunted, but the mower started at 5 the next day like it, too, could read the lease. Mom surprised me with an envelope marked opened. Inside were 3 bills, all stamp paid with confirmation numbers. She'd written the codes on a sticky note the way she used to label our lunch bags. "If I do this every Friday, will you stop looking so tired?" she asked. That one landed in my ribcage. "If you do this every Friday," I said, "we both might sleep." On day 19, the roof guy, certified, insured, not Dad's friend Ray the Ladder, replaced a run of shingles that had been future me's problem for 5 years. Dad stood in the yard. "Looks expensive," he said. "Cheaper than denial," I said. He didn't answer. 2 small things on day 24. First, Dad handed me a set of keys he'd duplicated. "Just in case." Ben paused. "You should be the one with the ones that say do not copy." I swapped them onto my ring. Second, Mom asked if I'd sit with her while she balanced her checkbook on a yellow legal pad from 2003. "Is this what grown-ups feel like?" she asked. "Sometimes," I said. On day 28, the panic call arrived right on schedule. "They say we owe $6,000 today or the sale is back," Mom cried. Old me would have sprinted. New me said calmly, "Check your email." She opened the PDF and saw the county stamp and my name on the deed. Her breath changed. "Oh," she said, small but real. Dad took the phone and tried to turn it into debate. I denied him the sport. "This isn't a victory speech," I said. "It's proof we're not dying this month." Page 2 explains how we don't do this again. After I hung up, I sat in my car and let my heartbeat finish its drum solo. The porch bulb buzzed. Somewhere a dog barked at a squirrel with a god complex. The house looked the same, the story didn't. For once, the paperwork loved us back. That night I wrote a note to childhood me in the Notes app, because therapy says rewiring takes reps. You were never the ATM. You were the adult in the room, growing, waiting. The room finally noticed. I slept. Like a floor someone finally mopped. The morning after the deed email, Dad left 3 voicemails that started confident and sputtered out. I drove over with coffee and a folder labeled "Read Me" like a stop sign. Mom met me in socks and panic. Dad stood at the table with the lease in his left hand and a wrench in his right. "We're not tenants," he said. "We're family." "You're both," I said. "Family keeps you in the living room. Tenant keeps you out of the courthouse." We went line by line. I translated legal into human. Automatic rent became "the house gets paid like a light bill." Maintenance authorization became "no more Ray the Ladder." Insurance rider became "if lightning kisses the roof, we don't flirt back." Dad's shoulders dropped. "So we can stay. You can stay. We just can't drift." On Mom's phone I set up a porch light, account and linked the payments: mortgage, now mine, utilities, insurance. She tapped each confirmation. "I didn't know where to put the money before," she said. "It felt like pouring water into a bucket with no bottom." "You were," I said. "Now it's a bucket with a spigot." At the bank, a teller asked Dad for ID when he tried to chat hypotheticals about a home equity line. Ari's alert did its job. A note flashed. Title under review. Contact attorney. Dad squinted at me. "You set a tripwire?" "A baby gate," I said. That week, a postcard promised a foreclosure rescue. Mom almost called. I pointed to the fine print about deed transfers and $1 sales. We fed it to the shredder together. "It sounds silly," she said, "but the sound helps." Sunday, I brought groceries and a whiteboard. We built a weekly budget with blocks for food, meds, gas, and oh no, fund, and an actually fun because survival isn't the same as living. Dad rolled his eyes until I wrote yard equipment upgrades under fun. It wasn't perfect. Mom missed a payment by a day and texted me 6 question marks at 2 a.m. I replied, "One day is not equal to disaster." Dad tested the gate by offering to barter rent with a DIY water softener. I showed him the clause about licensed contractors. He sighed and, to my shock, called the number I handed him. We held our first family meeting that didn't sound like a weather alert. I explained escrow with envelopes until Mom could explain it back. Dad listened without pouncing. When we finished, he hovered by the sink and said, "Your granddad always said a real plan fits on one page. That whiteboard, that's one page." Week 3, the bank called Ari to confirm my refusal for a Helic inquiry. Dad, accidentally, started with a manager named Steve. Later, Dad trudged across the yard and handed me Steve's card. "He said we could," he began. "We can't," I said. He nodded. "Then we won't." The house changed its posture. The mail hit the floor without that slam. That night, Mom brought out a shoebox of receipts. We sorted them until the piles made sense. Groceries, pharmacies, emergencies, that were really procrastinations. We circled patterns. She traced one circle. "I kept thinking if I ignored it long enough, it would get smaller." "It gets louder," I said. "Money is a smoke alarm. You don't negotiate, you find the fire." She looked at me like I'd opened a door. "I didn't teach you any of this." "You taught me to keep the porch light on," I said. "I figured out the wiring." When I left, the house was quiet in a good way. Not saved, not solved, just scheduled, which in my family counts as a miracle. On the drive home, Ari texted, permanent note added. "No Helic without written consent." "Progress," she wrote. "Small loud ones?" I replied. "They called at 7:02 p.m. Voices braided with panic. We need 6,000 by Friday or they take the house," Mom said. Dad grabbed the phone. "Just this once. We'll pay it back." "I'm not wiring cash," I said steady. "Check your inbox." A minute later the line went quiet. I could hear the tiny click when Dad opened the PDF. "That's the deed," he breathed. "Read the top," I said. "Grantee." Silence. Then paper noise. Then Mom, small as a porch light in fog. "It says your name." "Right. I didn't pay your debt," I said. I removed the matches. "Mortgage is current. Taxes set to auto. House saved because it pays itself first now, not because I keep catching your fires." Dad tried for the old script. "So we're tenants," I said. "Lease in the second attachment. Same doors, new rules. Ask before ladders. Pay before panic. And the oh no envelope on the fridge? That's the first bill now." For a long beat I heard only the hum of their fridge and our history letting go. Mom exhaled. "We laughed when you said you'd never pay our debts again," she whispered. "I get it." "Good," I said. "Because this time I didn't send money. I let the sentence land clean as a gavel. I sent the deed." On speaker, Dad swallowed pride like a dry pill. "Then we'll read the name every time we're tempted to forget." "Do that," I said and hung up. Outside, my porch light clicked on by its timer. No drama, just habit. The house didn't change. We did. And for once, the boundary had a county seal.